Have you ever felt trapped on your spiritual journey? Like invisible shackles are holding you back from the true freedom you crave? There's a spiritual cage that 99% of spiritual seekers can't see. And today, you'll discover the keys to escape it. What I'm about to reveal completely changed my understanding of spirituality. By the end of this journey, you'll never look at your spiritual quest the same way again. But first, take a deep breath, because what I'm about to share will challenge beliefs you've held for years. Imagine for a moment two brilliant minds separated by centuries, one from the 17th century, the other from the 21st, one who revolutionized Western philosophy, the other who transformed modern spirituality, Baruch Spinoza and Eckhart Tolle. You might be thinking, what does a rationalist philosopher have to do with a contemporary spiritual teacher? The answer will surprise you, and more importantly, it will liberate you, because there's a secret connection between them that almost nobody has noticed, a bridge between reason and spirituality that can revolutionize your inner life. But before revealing this connection, I need to tell you something that might be uncomfortable. Most people are trapped in one of two spiritual cages, and you're probably in one of them right now. The first cage is that of pure emotional spirituality, where everything is feeling, intuition, and blind faith, where questioning is a sin and thinking is a blockage. The second cage is that of cold rationality, where spirituality is self-deception and transcendence is impossible, where only what can be proven and measured exists. Do you recognize either of these prisons? The truth is, both are brutal limitations. And this is exactly where Spinoza and Tolle meet in a revolutionary way. Spinoza, in the 17th century, created something that would forever change our understanding of reality. He didn't separate God from nature. He didn't divide mind and body. He didn't oppose reason and spirituality. For him, everything was a unified substance, an indivisible reality where thought and extension are merely different aspects of the same thing. Sound familiar? Eckhart Tolle, 3 centuries later, arrived at the same conclusion through a completely different path. Through the direct experience of consciousness, he discovered that there is a conscious presence that transcends thoughts and emotions, an essence that is beyond the mind, but does not exclude it. And here's the secret that will change everything for you. Both Spinoza and Tolle arrived at the same fundamental truth. Separation is an illusion. The separation between spirit and matter, between sacred and profane, between transcendent and immanent. But there's something even deeper, something that will free you once and for all from the chains that bind you. Spinoza called this intellectual love of God. Tolle calls it conscious presence. But they're both talking about the same transformative experience, an experience where reason and intuition unify, where thinking and being become one, where spirituality ceases to be escape and becomes the deepest understanding of reality. Do you want to know how to access this experience? First, you need to understand why you're trapped, and the prison has a specific name that few know. Spinoza called them sad passions. Tolle calls it emotional suffering. But both are describing the same mechanism that keeps us captive. They are the mental patterns that make us suffer, the identifications we create, the stories we tell ourselves. And here's what almost nobody tells you. These prisons are not eliminated by denial, nor by passive acceptance. They are transcended by active understanding. Spinoza discovered that the more we understand something, the less we suffer from it. The more we know our own mental mechanisms, the freer we become. Tolle arrived at the same conclusion. The observing consciousness is always free. It is the identification with the observed that imprisons us. But there's a point where the two approaches meet in an even more powerful way. And that's what makes this combination so revolutionary. So different from anything you've ever heard, Spinoza teaches us to use reason to understand our emotional nature, to map the patterns that control us, to understand the mechanics of the mind. Tolle teaches us to be present with this understanding, to not get caught up in analysis, to directly experience the freedom that arises from knowledge. Together, they offer something unique, an intelligent spirituality and a spiritual intelligence. But to apply this to your life, you need to understand three specific keys, three mechanisms of liberation that emerge when we unite these two wisdoms. The first key is what I call understanding observation. It's different from the passive observation that many spiritual traditions teach, and it's different from the cold analysis that traditional psychology proposes. It's a way of observing that understands and understanding that observes. When you feel anger, for example, you don't just observe the anger. You understand its mechanics. You understand its causes. You see its impermanence, but you also remain present with it, without judgment, without resistance, without identification. This union of understanding and presence generates a freedom that neither pure analysis nor pure acceptance can produce. The second key is the intellectual love of the present. Spinoza spoke of the intellectual love of God. Tolle speaks of love for the present moment. But when you unite these perspectives, something extraordinary happens. You begin to love reality not only because it is, but because you deeply understand why it is the way it is. Your love for the present becomes intelligent. Your intelligence becomes loving. And that changes everything, because this kind of love does not depend on external circumstances. It's not emotional. It's not conditional. It is the love that emerges from a deep understanding of the nature of existence. But there's a third key, the most powerful of all, and this is where most people get stuck, because it demands something that goes against all our conditioning. It demands that you stop trying to transform yourself. Sounds contradictory? Paradoxical? That's exactly what makes this approach so liberating. Spinoza showed that we are modifications of the unified substance, waves in the ocean of reality. We don't need to become something different from what we are. Tolle discovered that our essence is already complete, already free, already peace. We don't need to conquer anything. Liberation is not a transformation, it is a recognition. But it's not a passive recognition, it's an active recognition. Intelligent, understanding. You need to actively understand your own nature to recognize who you really are. And here's the game changer. When you stop trying to transform yourself and start to deeply understand yourself, transformation happens naturally, effortlessly, without internal violence, without fighting yourself. It's as if you discover you were always free, but you were looking in the wrong direction. And now, we arrive at the crucial point of our journey. Because it's one thing to understand these principles intellectually. It's quite another to live them in daily practice. How do you apply this union of Spinoza and Eckhart Tolle in your real life? How do you transform this understanding into lived experience? There's a specific methodology, a practical path that emerges from the synthesis of these two wisdoms. And that's what I'm going to teach you now, step by step, in a way that you can experience it today. But first, you need to be willing to let go of some ideas that may have accompanied you throughout your spiritual journey. You need to be open to discovering that spiritual freedom isn't what you thought it was. And that maybe, just maybe, you are already freer than you imagine. Take a deep breath. Allow these words to penetrate beyond the conceptual mind, because what comes next will connect all the dots I've planted so far, and it will show you exactly how to use this understanding to live a truly liberated spirituality. A spirituality that doesn't deny reason but transcends it, that doesn't reject emotions but understands them, that doesn't flee the world but embraces it with profound wisdom. Are you ready to discover how? I'm going to teach you now what I call the method of present understanding, a methodology that arises directly from the synthesis between Spinoza and Eckhart Tolle. But before we begin, you need to understand something fundamental. Most spiritual practices teach you to fight against your mental patterns, to resist, to control, to transform. This is the exact opposite of what works. Spinoza discovered that resisting an emotion only increases its power over us. Eckhart Tolle teaches that what we resist persists. So what's the alternative? Loving understanding, intelligent presence, active acceptance. And now I'm going to show you exactly how to do this. First movement, conscious mapping. When a difficult emotion arises, anger, anxiety, sadness, fear, your first impulse is probably to try to change it quickly. Stop, breathe, and do something revolutionary. Ask yourself, where does this emotion come from? What unmet need does it represent? What thought activated it? But don't do this like a psychologist analyzing a patient. Do it like a curious scientist studying the nature of consciousness itself. Spinoza taught us that emotions are expressions of vital needs. They are never wrong or unspiritual. They are precious information about our relationship with reality. When you understand this, something magical happens. The emotion stops being your enemy and becomes your ally. It stops being a problem and becomes a messenger. Second movement, understanding presence. Now comes the part that Eckhart Tolle teaches us with mastery. After understanding the mechanics of the emotion, remain present with it. But it's not the passive presence that many teach. It's an informed presence, a presence that understands. You know why the emotion is there. You understand its function. You recognize its impermanence. And from this understanding, you simply are with it, without judgment, without rushing for it to pass, without identifying with it. It's as if you were a compassionate observer who perfectly understands what they are observing. Third movement, Transcendent Integration. Here happens the true magic of the Spinoza-Tolle synthesis. When you understand and remain present simultaneously, something new emerges. A freedom that doesn't come from the elimination of the emotion, but from the transcendence of identification with it. You realize that you can feel anger without being an angry person. You can experience fear without becoming fearful. You can have anxious thoughts without being anxious. This is real spiritual freedom. It's not the absence of human experiences. It's the transcendence of slavery to them. But how does this work in practice? In real life, in the concrete situations of everyday life? Let me tell you a story. John worked in a toxic environment, an authoritarian boss, competitive colleagues, constant pressure. Every day he came home exhausted, irritated, spiritually drained. He tried meditation. He tried positive affirmations. He tried forgiveness. He tried raising his vibration. Nothing worked lastingly. Until he discovered this integrated approach. Instead of trying not to feel anger towards his boss, John began to investigate the mechanics of that anger. He discovered that behind it was a deep need for recognition, a desire to be valued, a sadness for not feeling seen. He understood that anger was actually an unconscious strategy of protection, a way to maintain dignity when he felt diminished. And then, instead of judging this anger as unspiritual, John learned to be present with it, to thank it for trying to protect him, to honor the legitimate need it represented, but without identifying with it, without becoming an angry person. The result was surprising, and the anger continued to arise when necessary, but it lost the power to control him, to drain his energy, to steal his peace. He became free to choose how to respond, instead of reacting automatically. And more importantly, he began to approach the situation at work much more effectively, because he was no longer fighting against his own emotions. This is the difference between superficial spirituality and real spiritual freedom. The superficial tries to eliminate what is human in us. The real makes us free to be fully human without being slaves to humanity. But there's something even deeper that I want to share. A dimension of this practice that few discover, and that completely changes your relationship with existence. Stop for a moment. Feel your body. Notice your breath. Observe the thoughts passing by. Now tell me, who is observing? This simple question is the key to what Spinoza called eternity within us, and Eckhart Tolle calls timeless presence. There is a dimension of you that never is born and never dies. That is always present, always free, always at peace. It's not a belief. It's not a philosophy. It's a direct experience available right now. When you understand your emotions deeply and remain present with that understanding, you naturally identify more with this observing consciousness than with the observed contents. And that changes everything. Have you ever felt trapped on your spiritual journey? Like invisible shackles are holding you back from the true freedom you crave. There's a spiritual cage that 99% of spiritual seekers can't see. And today, you'll discover the keys to escape it. What I'm about to reveal completely changed my understanding of spirituality. By the end of this journey, you'll never look at your spiritual quest the same way again. But first, take a deep breath, because what I'm about to share will challenge beliefs you've held for years, because you realize the freedom you seek isn't in the future. It's not the result of years of practice. It doesn't depend on external circumstances. It's here, now, as your most fundamental nature. But how do you cultivate this perception? How do you make it stable? How do you live from it? Here's what most spiritual masters don't tell you. It's not through more techniques, more practices, more knowledge. It's through what Spinoza called acquiescentia in se ipso, satisfaction in oneself, contentment with your own nature. And Eckhart Tolle expresses this as accepting what is, not as resignation, but as recognition of what is already complete within you. When you stop trying to become something different, when you stop looking for freedom outside of yourself, when you stop postponing your peace to the future, you discover you've always been what you've been seeking. You've always been free, always complete, always peace. But this discovery needs to be lived, not just understood. And this is where the most practical aspect of this approach comes in. The spiritual freedom routine. It's not a routine of practices to achieve something. It's a routine to recognize what already is. Morning. Recognition of conscious presence. 5 minutes. Before grabbing your phone. Before planning your day. Before anything. Sit comfortably, close your eyes, and simply notice that you are conscious. Don't try to meditate. Don't try to empty your mind. Don't try to achieve some special state. Just recognize, I am conscious. There is a presence here that observes everything. Remain with this perception for a few minutes. Allow it to stabilize. During the day, compassionate inquiry, whenever a strong emotion arises. Stop what you're doing. Breathe deeply 3 times. Ask, what is this emotion trying to communicate to me? What need does it represent? Listen with genuine curiosity, without haste, without judgment. Then remain present with the emotion and your understanding of it. 5 minutes is enough. Sometimes 2 minutes is sufficient. Night reflective integration, 10 minutes. Before sleeping, mentally review the day, not to judge or correct, but to integrate experiences with understanding. What did I learn about myself today, and how did the observing consciousness manifest? Where did I unnecessarily identify with thoughts and emotions? It's like a scientist reviewing research data, curious, objective, compassionate. The transformation this routine produces is subtle but profound. It's not dramatic results. It's not spectacular, mystical experiences. It's something far more valuable. A gradual shift in your fundamental identity. You become less a person who has consciousness and more consciousness that expresses itself as a person. Less someone who seeks peace and more peace that manifests itself as someone. Less a being who wants freedom and more freedom that experiences itself as being. This shift in perspective is true spiritual liberation, and it's exactly what Spinoza intuited philosophically and Eckhart Tolle realized experientially. But there's one last secret I need to share, something that will connect all the dots we've explored on this journey. True spiritual freedom is not individual. It's not something you achieve for yourself in isolation. When you recognize your conscious nature, when you free yourself from compulsive identification with thoughts and emotions, when you live from present understanding, something extraordinary happens. You begin to recognize this same conscious essence in all beings. The same presence that observes through your eyes, observes through the eyes of all people. The same freedom you discovered in yourself is the freedom of everyone. This isn't philosophy, it's not belief, it's direct experience. And when this perception stabilizes, your spiritual quest changes direction completely. You stop seeking your own liberation and begin to live from the freedom you recognize as universal. You stop trying to become someone special and begin to celebrate the extraordinary that already exists in all things. You stop looking for God and begin to recognize that God was looking through you all along. This is the deepest synthesis between Spinoza and Eckhart Tolle. Spinoza showed us that we are modifications of the divine substance, waves in the infinite ocean of reality. Eckhart Tolle taught us to directly experience this truth through conscious presence. Together, they offer us not just intellectual understanding or isolated mystical experience. They offer us a way of living that is simultaneously profoundly spiritual and completely practical. A spirituality that doesn't separate us from the world, but reconnects us with the sacredness present in every moment. A freedom that doesn't depend on external circumstances, but transforms our relationship with all circumstances. A peace that isn't the absence of problems, but conscious presence in the midst of any situation. And now, we reach the end of this journey. But in truth, it's only the beginning, because everything I've shared here only has value if it's lived, experienced, embodied in your daily reality. You can keep these ideas as interesting concepts, you can file them away as spiritual knowledge, or you can do something revolutionary. You can experience it right now, this moment, without delay. Close your eyes for a moment, breathe deeply. Notice that there is a conscious presence here, a presence that is observing your breath, your thoughts, your sensations. This presence is you. Not the you with a name, history, problems and goals, but the you that is most fundamental, most essential, most free. Remain with this perception for a few more moments. And when you open your eyes, remember, this presence doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't depend on circumstances. It doesn't need to be conquered. It's always here, always free, always complete. And maybe, just maybe, you'll begin to realize that the spiritual freedom you've been seeking was never something to be conquered in the future. It was always your most intimate nature in the present. And the entire spiritual journey, the entire search, all the suffering of separation, was just consciousness playing hide and seek with itself, to have the joy of finding itself again. Welcome back to your true nature. Welcome to the freedom you never lost. Welcome home.